We finished last time with the Sfas Emes on Vayishlach. And we want to keep going so we get to Miketz. Because everything here now is exactly about, in the Parshas, is exactly about faith and confidence. Yosef. So we just want to end with a few important points that he makes. So he said, I'll read it just so that we can get back into it, okay? I'll read from the beginning just so we can remember what we were doing. In the Midrash it states, the chosen among the patriarchs and the chosen among the prophets, meaning Yaakov and Moshe, the Almighty made a promise to them, Hiftichan, and yet they were fearful. Why did they have fear? I heard from my teacher, my grandfather, a wondrous thought on this. Following his own judgment, Jacob understood that he was in danger. Meaning by his own mind, he understood that in spite of the fact that Hashem had promised him that everything would be okay, he saw the danger in front of him with Esav coming to kill him. And even though he was confident in God's promise, but the promise did not affect him, and he did what was needed and prayed when in danger. These are his words, the words of his grandfather, the Chidushei Avim. And it seems that from heaven they do not make a promise unless it is a person who possesses these, which was from this week's Parsha, who for this reason is called God's chosen. As it says in Tehillim, he chose Jacob for himself. So what does it mean to be chosen? To be able to carry these opposites. That on the one hand, you have a promise from Hashem that everything will work out, and Hashem will be with you. On the other hand, you're not oblivious, you're not a fool, and you're not blind to your situation. And you're able to carry both feelings at the same time. On the one hand, the confidence and trust in Hashem. On the other hand, fear. That you have actual fear. What is the fear meant to do? It's meant to get you to do something of your own accord. Something of your own volition. The fear is part of what causes us to act in the world. To do something. So if you only have confidence and you only trust in Hashem, so in the end, you'll just be like a slab of rock. You'll never do anything. You'll be like Hashem, who's your confidence. So he said these two things are what the Zohar is saying. That there are people like Yaakov and Moshe Rabbeinu who should not have trust in themselves. They're supposed to only be in Hashem. And there are people whose trust in themselves is because that's what they need to develop. What the Sfas Emes is adding is that both things happen in the same person. So when the Zohar is talking, and that's exactly how the Zohar talks. He's saying, in the moichin, in your wisdom and understanding, in your intellect, you understand that Hashem, you have an understanding that Hashem has given you all the promises in the world, that you will be successful in your mission. And you have nothing to fear. That's in your mind. But in your heart, there you have to have confidence of the nature, not just to believe in God, but to have confidence that He's given me all I need in order to solve my problems. And that's in my midos, that's in my emotive and habitual faculties. So the person is very complex. Intellectually, I have a certain understanding, a certain promise, and the promise is always something intellectual. And on the other hand, I have a duty to myself and to my being in the world to solve my problems, to do something, to have trust in myself, confidence in myself. Okay? So every person, so he says really that's what it means to be chosen. To be chosen is to be able, like the Baal Shem Tov, this is probably the one of the most important chidushim of the Baal Shem Tov, that you can't be you can't be a religious person in the world if you're not able to carry opposites. You have to be able to carry opposites. You have to be able to sustain a paradox in yourself. Except this is not such a terrible paradox because one side is in the intellect, the other side is in the emotions and in the habits and the actions. So that's not so hard to do. That's easier than sustaining other paradoxes which might be entirely inside the emotions. And here we have at least two different domains of the psyche in which each side of the paradox is sustained. Okay? And if this prayer would have gone missing because of the promise, he would not have been given a promise. So Hashem doesn't give a promise. He doesn't train your intellect to know that everything will be okay unless he knows that you're strong enough at the same time to hold on to having to do things by yourself. And in this case, it was he dwells here on the prayer. He focuses on the prayer, and we know that Yaakov did three things. He prepared for war, he sent a tribute, and he prayed. So he did all three things. He focuses on the prayer because that's his style.
What's gone missing? The prayer had gone missing?
It would have been missing from the world. This would have been a prayer that would not have come into the world. Meaning that the whole reason why Hashem put him in this position in the first place, where Esav is going to kill him, is to gain that prayer from Yaakov. And indeed, that's a prayer that we use a lot. Katonti mikol chasadim. It becomes a very emotional and very strong prayer. You could say that a lot of Chassidus is based on that prayer. That I've become smaller and smaller with every kindness that you have done for me. Meaning that I don't take anything for granted, and anything that's given me is a gift. Nobody owes me anything.
So to cultivate that lower emunah bitachon is really through prayer. That's the point. Because that's what's being pushed here. It seems like, the circumstances were pushing Yaakov to pray as a way of cultivating this dimension in his soul. So
the dimension of confidence, not the dimension of
that's what I'm saying,
faith.
Confidence, which he lacked.
Yeah.
So really, it's through saying that it's through prayer that we can.
Again, he dwells on the prayer,
Okay.
but in practice he did three things. All three things would have been missing, because again, it would have been a feeling or a knowledge that everything is going to turn out okay. So if everything's going to be okay with Yaakov, he doesn't need to pray or send a tribute to Esav or prepare for a war. He doesn't need any of this. So all three things would have been missing. He just focuses on prayer. And this is also the meaning of the words in the Medrash, do not fear is said only to one who has fear. The Medrash, this is Ger, this is Gur. Gur is from Pshischa. The Rebbe of Pshischa, Simcha Bunim. So he was the one who started the in-depth study of Medrash in the modern world. All of Pshischa, and you could say that because of that, most of the Polish Chassidus is based on learning Medrash. So one of the things he does is he focuses a lot, and he really meditates on the exact wording of the Medrash. Why the Medrash says things the way it does. So here it says it in a very strange way. I'll say it in Hebrew. In the Medrash it says...
is it here?
No, I don't have it here. But the Medrash says that... I don't remember the exact words of the Medrash. This was 2 weeks ago, so I forgot the words. But what the Medrash says is, the wording is such that it says that Hashem gives a promise of do not fear only to one who has fear. It's a very strange wording. It's as if saying, the pshat of it you would understand is that Hashem has to calm him down because he's afraid. He has to give him a promise that everything will be okay. But he doesn't read it that way. He says,
Ein Omrim Al Tira.
right. Where do you have it? Oh, it's in front of us. Sorry. Where?
The bottom two lines of the first paragraph.
Right. No, okay. So I don't know if that's the exact wording in the Medrash, but it's probably very close. Ein Omrim Al Tira ela lemי שמתיר. It's not said do not fear, the promise of do not fear. So again, not the pshat. It's not because he is fearful, but he knows that he possesses fear, he possesses the yira, the awe, in spite of what he might know. Meaning what he knows doesn't nullify his feelings. How did we say it last week? He said that the fact that you're religious doesn't take away from your humanity, which is why you're a human being.
This is a good fear, right? Is this, why should
It's a
we
good
take
fear
it away?
because it led to good things. Because he prayed and he did this and he did that. All
But
those
is
are
it
good
all
things.
of Hashem? Is this fear all of Hashem?
No,
That's
seemingly
what I
it's
wondered too.
fear of
Maybe it's more like
Esav.
real
fear.
fear.
and the
It's
second
fear of
part-
Esav. Yeah.
The second part of the fear that he's talking about is more of Hashem, but the first part is more like being
Perhaps.
afraid.
Perhaps. But again, here the interpretation is that he's not afraid to go into that state of having fear. It's the opposite of JFK. Was it JFK who said that? No, it was probably
Yeah, nothing to fear but fear
Roosevelt.
itself.
It was Roosevelt who said that we have nothing to fear except for fear itself. No. What you should be afraid of is that you're not able to sustain the paradox of being afraid and yet knowing that you will overcome. That paradox is what you should be afraid of not being able to contain. It's not the fear by itself. The fear by itself is a good thing, because the fear will lead you to be a human being. It'll
And then
cause you to do things.
Then how do you elevate it to awe? How do you make it into the good fear?
I don't know.
You don't have to. You need
I mean,
this.
of course you do, but here he's just saying at the very basic level, he's not afraid.
I understand.
He's able to hold his fear of Esav. He's able
I
to feel
understand
fear.
that's what it's teaching
Yeah.
here, but if you take it further, you're supposed to elevate all
Right.
your
So
fear.
you understand that really the whole thing is what I'm afraid of
Is
is,
the
not fulfilling my mission in the world, which is exactly what he does. He fulfills his mission. What is his mission at this point in time? To pray, to prepare for war, and to send a tribute. That's his mission at this point. Here, let me give you something. I've been struggling with this thought for the last 2 months. So I'll give it to you. You do with it what you want. Here, this is a very delicate thought, in the sense that it can make you or break you. It can either instill a tremendous amount of life into you, or if you understand it incorrectly, or I think take it incorrectly, it might really be a downer. How could it be that Hashem both knows everything that's going to happen?
Unless
And we're going to get to this in a second, so that's why I'm bringing it up. How could it be that Hashem both knows everything that's going to happen, and the history of the world has already been written, let's call it, and yet we have free will? What is the place of free will in such a world? If you didn't tell me that Hashem knew everything, I wouldn't have a problem. I would just lead life the way that most people lead life. They don't think anybody has omniscience about what the world is like, so they're not really captured in this paradox. They don't really care. But I really believe that. So you work it through your mind a lot of times. I haven't seen this written anywhere, but it seems very clear to me that this is one option of how to solve this question or this paradox. What if before you come down into the world, you're shown various types of life that you can take on, various stories of people,
it's supposed to be that we pick it.
and you choose the one you
Right.
want.
Right. We know that.
Okay. But you don't just choose one. You choose multiples.
You do?
Yeah. A soul is much more than just one lifetime. A soul can give life to 1 billion people. It's no problem. I'm not talking about, energy. It's like the sun. The sun can give enough energy for billions of people. There's no problem. So the soul can enliven, can animate many, many lives. It doesn't have to be one. And you're doing them together at the same time.
Doing them, living them.
You're living
Because
them
life-
at the same
because
time.
time is nothing, right?
Because if time is like the way that the soul sees it, which is like God sees it, so time is more like how we see space. We don't have a problem seeing that there's a lot of pictures on the walls here. It's not like, my eyes can only take one picture at a time. No, I see that it's true that when I want to get into the details, I can only focus on one at every moment, but they all exist here in front of me. So I take them all in at the same time. Hashem takes all time in the same way. all moments of time are just, like right in front of me. This is something that physicists have been talking about a lot for the last 40 years. What does it look like when you look at the entire expanse of time all at once? So they don't know why they're doing this, but they're asking this question. I don't know why they're asking. I don't think they have a really good reason for it. One of the reasons why they might be asking it is because seemingly according to physics, when you look into the cosmos, what you're seeing is all of time spread out, as it were. But it's not exactly that way, because you're not seeing every star in all the various stages of its development and then its death. You're seeing one point in time, but it's true that over all the expanse of the cosmos, you're seeing things, according to physics, that were 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 1,000,000 years ago, 1,000,000,000 years ago, 10 billion years ago. You're seeing it all at the same time. So to a certain extent, it's the same question. Okay? But now let's go back to us. How many people were alive, how many Jews were alive in the history of the world? Let's say 100 million. Let's say, I don't know. I'm throwing out a number, I know. Each one of our souls inhabits many of these lives. Not just one of them. And from the soul's perspective, this is all happening, you can call it concurrently. It's not really happening. Well, first you have to be
like
somebody in the time of the
all in dimensions,
of the
different
prophets,
dimensions.
and again, all the dimensions are right in front of you. All time is right in front of you. So the soul is taking on multiple. These are all happening right now. So we read about them in the Chumash, and we treat them like there was something that happened 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Well, not 1,000, but 2,000 years ago. And call it the motif of Chanukah is Bayamim Ahem Bizman Hazeh. In those days in our time. What are you trying to say? You're trying to tell me the first meditation in Chassidus, which is, it's not that it happened then. It's happening now in front of me. How could it be happening now? So people say, history repeats itself. It's not just it repeats itself. It's concurrently happening at the same time. It's happening there and it's happening here. Okay, again, what does this give me? It gives me the understanding that at the same time, I'm not just writing the story of this lifetime, I'm writing a story of many concurrent lifetimes at the same time. And it might be that whenever I reach a certain point with a certain challenge, all my different, call them incarnations, I don't have a better word for it, but all my different concurrent selves are also faced with that same challenge in somebody who I am playing also 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 550 years ago, I don't know, whatever it is. And we're all faced at the same time with this challenge. Now, it's sort of like when you play the roulette wheel, you can put your thing on a few numbers. It's just one of them that needs to solve the problem. Just one of them needs to face the challenge. And it gives strength to everything at the same time. So the fact that I read about Yaakov 2 weeks ago, that he faced the challenge, and I really identify with him, it could be that itself is what's happening concurrently with me. Okay? And that's why I read the Parsha. That's what's called Bayamim Ahem Bizman Hazeh. That in this time of the year, everybody across the board is facing these certain types of challenges. And I'm supposed to take my cue from the Parsha to solve everybody's problem, not just mine. All my different selves, if you want. And then in the end, when you really think about it, you understand that at a certain level of the opposite of definition, meaning generalization, all these lifetimes are really just one. They're just God. Just the one divine soul coming down and populating all these Jews across history. But we don't want to get into that level of generalization because it sort of takes away. But Yaakov is an archetype in the sense that he teaches all of us how to face that challenge, and that challenge is needed because you're not only solving your problem, you're solving many other people's problems. Now, why did I say this could be a downer? It could be a downer because it puts more strain on you. It puts more weight on your decisions and what you do and so on. On the other hand, it could also be something very strengthening in the sense that it's not lost if you weren't able at that moment to meet the challenge the right way. It could be that one of your other incarnations did meet it. And so suddenly you know that you failed, and yet suddenly it works out okay. How did this exactly work? How did this happen? Well, one of my other places where I faced the same type of challenge, he did get through it. And that changes everything for everybody. And so the world is like a very, very multi-layered system where you're not just making it better for yourself. It could be that you're solving problems that existed 500 years ago for somebody. And you're living off of what was solved, what we call again 500 years ago, which currently is happening. And somebody there is solving it. All this is very interesting as a thought experiment. What do I do with it psychologically? So psychologically it says that, look, whatever you need to do in life, it's not that you get one chance. It'll repeat over time. You'll come back to the same places where you have to make the same effort to meet the challenge.
That's how you do tshuva, or else
Right.
if you couldn't do tshuva.
Right,
if
and you
didn't
can do
keep
it at any time. There's not one defining moment in life. Don't think about it as, wow, I missed my chance. There's no such thing. Because if it was that way, so what would be the point? If all of life boiled down to one moment, so just give me that one moment. Let's see what I do. Why do I have to suffer for 50 years before that moment and then another 50 years after that moment? What good is that? Oh, you're saying I want to understand the challenge. Hashem can orchestrate it in such a way that I would get it 2 minutes in. Live for 2 minutes, I'd understand the challenge, and let's see what you do. So what I'm saying is that really these challenges, they repeat just as much as they seem to be really critical at the moment. If you botch it the first time, it's okay. You can keep trying again and again. You get them again and again. There's no such thing as fully missing the boat. You always have another chance. And this thing is something that I always tell parents with chinuch, that don't ever think that you botched it. Because it's a long, long life. And it's true that it seems that there are more critical moments that you didn't get it right and so on and so forth. But you know what? You botched it and the world continues. How is that possible? It should have, gone up in flames. It didn't go up in flames. The world continued. Your kids continued. You continued. Everything somehow continued. Better place, worse place, but it continues. It's because there are moments, like you said, that those moments are like tshuva. They change everything across the board. And so don't give up on it. So he says, all these tests, they keep repeating. You get them once, you get them twice, you get them 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It could be that every day you're faced with them. Hashem gives you the luxury of having these tests again and again and again and again. So some of them might be yours. Some of them actually might be from a different lifetime that you're living concurrently, and they sort of just, you get a sort of a pointer to them, but it's not the real thing itself. It might be actually easier to solve it when that happens. Yeah.
I don't know if you watched Shimona Kringle's interview with the movie producer director of Jordan Peterson, the movie that's been made a documentary on the rise of the Jordan Peterson, and Shimona's interviewing her, and then she's giving her observations in Hasidut, and she says that we know that double organs are always plural, your dime and naim, and she says, but the face, which is one, is also plural, panim. She says, because within us are so many dimensions. We have, it's not just we have one face, but there are many, there are panim, and it just
Shivim panim, you have
Yes.
70 faces.
So she was, yes, so she
And
was
Shivim in Gematria is 422, so you actually have 422. That's not a joke, because when we talk about the lights of the face, what is this in Kabbalah? So I'm saying now stuff that's above my pay grade, right? But in Kabbalah, that's called Atik Yomin. Atik Yomin is where the lights of the face come from. The face is like Arichan Pin, the long face, but its light comes from Atik Yomin. Atik Yomin is equal to 422. That's one of and it's not just that. The Atik Yomin plus Arichan Pin is equal to Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. It's also related to Hashem Oshia, which is 422, and Melech Ya'anienu B'Yom Koreinu, which is Arichan Pin. So these are very important. What they're saying is that these lights are coming, well, because we started with how many faces?
70.
So it says 70 faces, because that's what Chazal say. But 70 is equal to 422, which leads in Kabbalah to this whole picture of the interaction between these two Partzufim of the crown, Arichan Pin and Atik Yomin. Atik Yomin being the inner, and Arichan Pin being the outer, and one goes inside the other. Remember, we learned all about this. And it gives off 370 lights, Shin Ain Norim. It's really at 375 from the word Hashem Moshia. Hashem will save you. In any case, so there's a lot going on in the background. Okay, so
It's usually Shivim Panim, isn't it talking about 70 different interpretations of a pasuk?
of a Torah piece.
How
Now
did
you're
we
saying
get
it in a
there?
different way.
Okay, I'm saying that in you it's even more complex.
How do we
In
get
the Torah,
to
it's
this?
also that complex, by the way. What?
How do we get to Atikum,
Because Atika means equal to 422.
which is...
But what does it mean? I don't know what it means even.
Sorry, it's Atik, just that.
Oh, that's like, okay.
No, it's not right.
Right.
Arich and Pin is equal to 422. And the other side is equal to Tik Yomin. So, work it out. And the explanation is that certainly all the trials and difficulties that come to the world are necessary. All of these trials and difficulties are points of tipping points, that you get a chance to move things. So they're all required for some rectification. So now I'm going to skip now and go to the next page. Indeed, it seems, he writes now in parentheses exactly what we just said. It seems that the contradiction between God's knowledge, meaning his omniscience, and human choice is similar, except that it would require further explanation. So what he's trying to give now is a further explanation. That really, Hashem has it all, he knows everything that's going to happen, but it's up to you to successfully navigate these points of choice. There are certain points in your life in which you get to choose. And the real choice is whether I will go beyond, above and beyond what Hashem already knows, or whether I won't. Just like Yaakov here. He knows, Hashem promised him, he knows that everything will be all right. That's what people say to one another when they're in distress. So they say, everything's going to be all right. We've talked a lot about end of life care. So you say to the person, everything's going to be all right. That you mean omniscience. You mean what Hashem knows. But if you're not at the end of your life, and if you're not dead yet, you're not at the end of your life, then there's something you can do. Whatever that doing is. Heard an incredible story last night from the Tolner Rebbe, that he had a question, incredible question. Why don't we say Shechianu before we pass away? What is he saying? He's saying, you say Shechianu about everything new in this world. So moving from this world to the next world is not enough of newness for you? That you don't say Shechianu? There's no Shechianu, you say Shema. You don't say Shechianu? And he asked this a lot of times from great rabbis that he knew. And the Talmud Rebbe was a big tzaddik who lived in in Beit Vagan. Neighbor, Beit Vagan, wherever he lived. Passed away in Bnei Brak in the end. And he didn't find an answer. He asked a lot of people. And so they say that he passed away today. Today's his Yortzei. Kafei Kislev. That's why I was telling the story. The Tolna Rebbe. He's from the same Pshischa. He's also Polish. He's also Gur in the end. Gur. He never got an answer. And then the story is that his Meshamish, he had a few Meshamish, he was a busy man. He was in the hospital for a few weeks before he passed away. And they say that the last night, which would have been a few hours before Hanukkah, he asked the question again, and nobody noticed. But afterwards they reconstructed what they had talked about, and they said that he asked it. It was clear that he saw something coming. So, should I say Shechianu, not say Shechianu? But nobody got it. And then Hanukkah started, and his Meshamish came, and he sees that instead of lighting the candles, he started by singing his whole Seder Nigunim, all the Nigunim that he used to sing after you light the candles. Like Anera Salalu and Mausu and whatever he's saying, and he had a whole Seder, it took like an hour. You know, all kinds of psukim they also said. He said everything before he lit the candles. And then he asked for the candles, and he lit. What's the last bracha that you say when you light the candles on the first
Must
night?
be
Shechianu. And then he was silent. He didn't say anything at all. And they tried to speak to him, and they saw that he was 100% conscious of the very word. Why is he not answering? They came with all kinds of questions. All kinds of questions. He didn't say a word. And that night he passed away. And they thought, what was going on? Why didn't he talk to us for 4 hours after he lit? And why was it all backwards? Until they finally got it. That he decided, I don't have an answer. Nobody told me whether you say Shechianu or you don't say Shechianu about moving to the next world. But here I have a solution. I'll say Shechianu, and that's it. I won't say anything afterwards. So the Shechianu is for the candles.
He said before the candles or after the candles?
No, he lit the candles, he said the brachos. He said the
Shema.
brachos, he lit the candles, but he didn't sing everything afterwards. He sang everything that usually you sing afterwards, he sang before.
What about Shema?
He didn't, apparently he said before also.
Because he
He
didn't
didn't
want to
say.
speak between
Right.
saying a bracha
And the next world, and enjoying the next world. It's better than a new fruit.
Or it could be the person says it when they get there to the next world.
Maybe, when you get to well, but it doesn't count. Because the bracha really counts only here. Because only in this world can you do mitzvahs. You can't do mitzvahs. So you can say it, probably they say it. They say, "Ay, why didn't I say it before I left?" So his yortzeit is today. So it's a very interesting Chanukah story.
What's his name again?
The Tolna Rebbe,
T-O-L?
N-E-R. Tolna.
There's a very famous story, short, very quickly I'll tell.
Since
the
it's his
Talmud
yortzeit,
from
you can.
Bnei Brak,
Yeah.
that he was asked, what's the difference between Chabad and Breslov? Have you heard this? So he said, by Breslov, Rabbi Nachman wants him to have long payas, so after
can pull him out.
120 years, and it's getting very, very, that place
That was
is
his
getting
story?
very, very hot. So he comes, and he can pull them out of Gehenna with their long payas. And by Chabad, when the Chabad Chassid gets to that place that's very, very hot, and he calls Rebbe comes and says, here's $1 for your shlichus in this place.
That's from him?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I heard
I
it
thought it
from
was a
my wife
famous joke.
Jacobson. No, it's a telling. No, I heard that it was
He
really
said
from
it in his
From
name?
the Tolna Rebbe from
Could be.
Bnei Brak.
Could be.
And it's his yurtzeit.
There's another joke about this, which is, I don't know who invented this. It says, why did God create two worlds? Because it says that Hashem came to the Rebbe for the dollars on Sunday. And he asked him, should I make a world? Should I create the world? It's not a joke. It says this, that Hashem came to the tzaddikim and asked him, should I create the world or not? The tzaddikim said, yes, you should. But when he came to the Rebbe, what did the Rebbe answer? He gave him $2, and he said, Kiflaim letushiyah. It should be double. So Hashem created two words. Okay. And the general rule is that only the chosen among the patriarchs and the prophets could sustain both at the same time, as one. Likewise, in the congregation of Israel, we find this, as it was in the time of Mordechai, when even though they believed that the Jewish people cannot be annihilated from the world, they still stood in prayer and cried out in their time of trouble. So this is the same thing, because they were in the exile of Babylon, and they had a nevuah, they had a prophecy that it would last only 7 years, and they knew they weren't going to be destroyed. So why did they pray? Because they held both at the same time. That they knew, on the one hand, I have a promise that will survive. On the other hand, I have to do my duty. That's why I'm here. That's my humanity. That's why I'm in the world. It is the same in the individual person, as much as he is ready for this type of faith. Meaning, the more he's been taught that this is what it means to have faith. To have faith and yet to do. On the one hand, to know that you're promised, that's faith. Everything's good, like we've been talking about faith all along. And is afforded strength from heaven. He has faith, and he knows that Hashem is giving you. He's also giving you the strength, and you have to do. But you can't have one without the other. That's exactly what it means to say, I did this. When I say I did this, meaning my might has brought me all these successes yeah. So that's when you don't have faith, when you don't understand that Hashem gave you this strength. To understand that Hashem gave you the strength, you have to have faith also. As it says, He will not prevent good from those who walk earnestly. And this depends on being able to serve God and not oneself. It says that level of being able to act is when I serve Hashem. That's why I have to have the faith. And we're going to talk more about this today. That sometimes it's also, as we'll see by Yosef, I have to invent the way I'm going to act. I can't rely on anything at all. We talked about this in terms of, we said that true bitachon is when a person has to start a new line. He has to start a whole new way of working in the world. But sometimes it's even in the middle of the line. That's what we'll talk about today. Sometimes even in the middle of my path, I suddenly can no longer rely on anybody that can help me here. I have to do things myself. It has to be DIY. Can't do it any other way. It won't work. If I try to get help, it won't work. And this is only, in any case, to act, requires that I feel that I'm performing Hashem's mission for me. Again, that He's the one who's giving me the task. I'm not doing it for myself, I'm doing it for Hashem. That's why by Jacob it says He chose Jacob for Himself. Israel is His skula. Meaning that when you understand that Hashem chose you for Himself, why am I chosen? Not for me, but for Him. And the sages explain that just as a woman, and this is very interesting, because this is a whole restatement of what feminism is. And the sages explain that just as a woman does for her husband, so the Jewish people do good deeds for God. Understand what he's saying? What do you mean she's doing for her husband? She can do everything. She can be anything. What saves her from self-aggrandizement, from falling, from all these things? From being what we would call the negative form of feminism? That she feels that she's doing it for her husband. That she feels that there's somebody behind her who's giving her the task. This is true by all of us. We're all feminists in that sense. Every person is a feminine relative to God who's the masculine. So if I want to be a real feminist for myself, I have to be working for Hashem. It can't be for me. And that's why women never get tired, right? It's unbelievable. It doesn't make any sense. Right? How is it that women can do everything that they do? That's one thing guys don't get. They can't understand. How can you do so much? So they belittle it because it can't be. It doesn't make any. It's not normal. Because I'm not doing for myself. My feeling is that I'm always serving a mission. I'm always serving a higher purpose. So sometimes it can be very frustrating that the whole higher purpose is just my house. When you say for your husband, what you mean is for your house, for your home. That's why I'm doing all of this. Just for one home. What's one home? If it was the White House, maybe I understand. That's big enough. But just for one home, yes, just for one home. Every person has to know what his scope is, what her scope is. So me also, if my mission now is just to teach a class, it's just to teach a class. If there's two people in it, one person and nobody there, I said, oh, that's my scope right now. I'm not doing it for that one person. I'm doing it because Hashem wants me to do it for that one person. I'm not doing it for myself, certainly, because if there's only one person, why waste my time? Right? All these things, even if I do them because what I'm doing is a mission. What I'm doing is in the name of something higher than me. And I can do that whether I'm cooking in the kitchen, whether I'm tending to the roses in the garden, or whatever I'm doing. Or teaching, or taking care of somebody who's ill, or whatever it is. And when you do it that way, then you're chosen. And when you're chosen, you can have both your humanity and the promise that it will work out. And they act the way they do for His name, whether it's good or bad. It doesn't matter. So the failure doesn't matter. Even if I failed, what do I care if I failed? I'd rather not fail, but if I did, the failure is not a reflection of who I am and what I am. It's a reflection of the idea that Hashem now wants it to be this way. After the fact, this was not supposed to work out, however it was. But that's only if you have faith that Hashem is the one who's promising you. He's the one who's giving you the strength to do. And that solves so many psychological problems that people have of self-image. Because everybody thinks that my successes and my failures, now we're going back to rectifying the ego, they're a reflection of who I am. No. They're not a reflection of who you are. At most, they're a reflection of how connected you are to Hashem, maybe. But really, they're a reflection of what Hashem wants in the world right now, after the fact. That's what He wanted. Of course, this all has to do with you. You can't say that to somebody else. I keep repeating the story about my 4-year-old, my oldest son when he was 4. So he had a friend over from kindergarten, and my wife gave them cookies, and I think she put them in a bowl, thinking that they could share. And then my 4-year-old, he took all of them, put them in his pocket or whatever. So that one started crying. So being the child of myself, what does he tell him? He says, Yairi, don't cry. That's what Hashem wanted. So this can backfire a little. It backfires if you say it to somebody else. You have to learn how to say it to yourself. But that's what Hashem wanted. I did everything I could. This is what Hashem wanted. That's all there is. You go into Shabbos, and it's not the meal that you wanted, and it's not the cleanliness that you wanted, and it's not this that you wanted. So I said, okay, that's how Hashem wants the Shabbos to be. Because Shabbos is now, you can't put it off. And one of the worst things about not being a Jew is that there's no real time limits on anything. That's what I always imagine. They can always keep. You never really finish. But when Shabbos is, that's it. Like it's over. There's nothing to do. This is what you have. Make it do. You'll get along. It's not the end of the world. Why? Because Hashem wants this type of Shabbos right now. Okay. So let's continue with the next idea here.
What's 115 now?
We're on page 16 now.
16?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we talked a lot about Yaakov and Moshe now. Now moving on, line 451
Wait, page 16? Not in the book.
The new
No.
16.
in English.
Oh, uh-huh.
You want to know where it is in the book?
I got it. I read mine.
In the book,
Samach Tes.
Samach Zayin, Samachet. Samachet. 68.
Okay.
Indeed, there is another level of confidence that is even higher than this self-nullification. And this is the true confidence in the supernal name Havaya, which is the secret of the 10 Sfirot as they are concealed within their emanator. Within Adam Kadmon, when speaking after the contraction, and in Kadmon, Echad Yan Yechid, when speaking before the contraction, as explained in Hasidic teachings. So now we're coming to a whole new level of confidence. Until now, the confidence was that I have the ability to fulfill my mission. And in a sense, we were talking about continuity. The ability to take another step and another step and another step until you finally complete what you need to complete. But there's a whole other level of confidence that you sometimes have to tap into. And this confidence is already what we would call existential. It's not just confidence in the sense that I can complete my mission, I can complete what I want, what I feel I need to do. It's confidence for my very existence. It's to have confidence in my very existence. And this might be the thing that's most lacking when people become depressed or suffer from anything that has to do with an inability to function. They lose confidence or self-confidence not at the level of what they can do, but in the very essence of their existence. They don't trust anymore that they have a role to play in this world. So it's sort of like a feeling of, I could just roll over and die. And it would make no difference. This is the feeling that people have when they might be depressed, or it might be something even deeper. Or just in the sense where they feel that they've become irrelevant. Who's the most irrelevant person in the world? Yosef. Why is Yosef the most irrelevant person in the world? Let's think about his life. So he's Yaakov's son, but he has 11 brothers and who knows how many sisters. At least one. They hate him so much that they're willing to sell him into slavery. They're really willing to kill him. But they sell him into slavery. And as a slave, he's thrown into jail. There's not much that's less than that. I mean, that's really the end of the line. You can't go any lower. Just there's nowhere to go from there. He's completely irrelevant to anything. He means nothing. Who cares? You know, these words that we read, and Yosef had success in the jail. Who cares?
Well, his father cared very much.
His father cared, but he didn't know what his father knew or didn't know.
Well,
In terms of his life, from being an aspiring young man at 17 who thought he would be some kind of very important person, he's nowhere. He simply is nowhere. He's achieved nothing, and he is nowhere. Even if he would have achieved something, he's really important in the jail. What is that like? That's a guy who, instead of walks around with a cart, and that's in today's jails. I don't know what it was like in his jail. But he walks around with the cart, and he's the librarian. He gets the books and he gives back the books. Who cares? You're insignificant, so you're so insignificant. And in the jail, apparently, he's so meaningless that you know what he can do. That's like the jail within the jail. He hears stories. People talk about their dreams. Nothing. There's nothing there. You don't play a role in society. You're certainly not bettering yourself. You're certainly not, it's not the jails today where they try to rehabilitate you and you get walks in the sun and you get there's nothing there. I read a question on Torah. Somebody asked about the actual, I don't know what they were called. They had a name for it. In Hebrew, they're just called bo. It's called a pit.
mm-hmm.
And we hear a lot about these. That a Jew who was late with his payments in Europe, he was thrown into the bow. What does that mean? So they told us. They said that there was one of these borot, one of these holes in some estate in France. Meaning there was the dungeon, and then within the dungeon, what we call today solitary is built on the same idea. But there, once you were thrown in, nobody would ever come to take you out. So it's just a question of how long it would take you to die. That was what these things were. So he's in there. And you've got 3 people there, he and these 2 others. And they're talking about... That's where he was. So who are you? What are you? What are you worth? Nothing. So you don't have to be there. A lot of people get to that state without being there. They give up on their lives. They give up on... Because to begin with, they don't have a sense of that my life has a mission. But when you get to these places, even if you have that sense, it sort of dissipates after a while. And you feel that there's no reason for me to be here. I might as well be dead. There's nothing here. How do you get out of that place? So the story of Yosef getting out is the story of how you get out of that place. The Torah comes to tell us what kind of psychological state you have to get into in order to get out of this pit. The pit within the jail. The pit within the dungeon. The lowest of the low of the states in which the psyche can be in. Where I have absolutely no purpose in life. I'll send a link to the Quora question so you can read what it's like in these places. It's pretty strong. It's pretty strong description. So something very interesting happens. He says that when you're there, you have to begin to trust in what's called the bitachon in the 10 sfirot as they're concealed within the emanator. What is this? This is like the beginning of being that's not reflected in any way. It's not expressed in any way. It's just a thought in Hashem's mind, as it were. But the power of that spot, that place, is that it forces being to come out. It forces reality to emerge in some way. And if you can connect there, then you'll get out of this place. You'll get out of this situation. And again, for us, it's not so much usually a question of where you're physically, that you're stuck in some pit in a dungeon. It's that in your mind, you're so low that it's as if you don't exist already. So if you don't exist, your crisis is existential. You have to recreate yourself. And you can't recreate yourself because you don't have the power of creation, but Hashem does. So he says, Yosef has to connect with Hashem with confidence and trust in the place that is before creation. And there's confidence and trust even there. And what does that confidence and trust do? It gives birth, or it causes the emergence of being. It causes you to come out. That's what it means that Yosef was taken out of the pit. Another name for this pit is from the Ayin, from the nothingness. But you can reach such a low level in your psyche that there's so nothing there. You have nothingness. You are nothingness. You're in the void. You're mamish nothing. There's no even vessel for you to fill. There's nothing. Just nothingness. This darkness, that's what Yosef was in, and Yosef emerged from that. And emerging from that, he did by connecting, this is what Chassidus explains, to this place that, again, the description here is, in the supernal name Havaya, which is the secret of the 10 Sfirot, as they are concealed within their emanator.
As what name? Havaya?
Again, Havaya is just a general name for God,
Emerged as...
essential name.
He emerged as...
Read it. Line 452. It's in there. I'm reading from it. The true being, so I'm continuing 456, the true being, Yesh Amiti, what we're talking about here is true being, meaning it's what Hashem is, even if there's no world. Hashem continues to be. He's true being. That's for sure. But even within Hashem, there's a true being of reality, which is not dependent on whether reality exists or not. It's how reality is in Hashem's mind, as it were. And there it's fixed, it's permanent. It's not going anywhere. It's just a question of, by Hashem was just a question of when would this emerge and the world would be created. From this comes the well-known question that if the world is such a good thing, meaning it was already in Hashem's plan, so why did he wait so long to create it? How do I know he waited so long? Because it's only 5,780 years old. So what did he do before then? So the answer is there was no time before then. Time was also created, so you can't ask the question what was before. That's what the sages say. Don't ask what was before, don't ask what was behind, and so on. In any case, the true being that is higher than the nothingness of the first three Sfirot in the world of emanation. There's nothingness in Chabad in the world of emanation. Again, this is the nothingness that we described before as just faith. Faith in Hashem, in the... No, Chabad. Chabad here is Chokhmah Bina Dat.
Right, so if it's higher, then it's Keter.
So we're talking, okay, so here when we're going further back, it would be like Keter relative to it. But that's not the word we use because we're talking about even before any emanation. It wasn't anything yet. This is the confidence exhibited by Joseph the Tzaddik and by every true leader of the Jewish people who provides and sustains like Yosef himself. Moshe Rabbeinu himself was elevated eventually to this level of confidence when he became the king of the Jewish people. Because eventually Moshe became a king. And first, he couldn't do anything. When Hashem turns to him and says, I liked what you did in Egypt. What did he do in Egypt? He stood up for a Jew who was being hurt. Why did Moshe do that? Because he had some grand plan, because of his great confidence in himself? Opposite. He said Moshe has no confidence in himself. Vayivrach, he runs away. He runs away from Pharaoh. He has no confidence. Why did he do that? It was an act of spontaneous idiocy. Shtut. It was a stupid thing to do. But Hashem likes it. He says, when you're stupid, okay, how do you know a person? When he's drunk. Okay? When he does stupid things. So what does it look like when he does stupid things? When he doesn't have his wits about him. So then you see what he's really made of. But in terms of his mind, he would never act that way. If he had any composure, he would never act the way that he did. Moshe Rabbeinu's killing the Egyptian was an act of supreme idiocy. You don't do that. Because what did he... What would somebody have told him? Look, Moshe Rabbeinu, you like the Jewish people. You're a Jew yourself, let's say. You're the prince. You're the prince of Egypt. Pharaoh will die. You'll become the Pharaoh. And then do whatever you want. What, you're going to risk your whole career? Again, if he was thinking, what would he say? Why would I risk my whole career, my whole life, for something that anyway is not going to help anybody? Just one person. But look at what's at stake. If I really believe that the Jewish people should be released from slavery in Egypt, and I'm in a position of such tremendous power, why would I put that in the balance? Why would I in any way threaten that, risk it for one person? It doesn't make any sense. It's an act of foolishness, of foolhardiness. It's shtus. But, says Hashem, I liked it. Because you know what? The world doesn't hang on just one act. Like we said, there's many chances. You have many chances. So it looks like you throw away your career. I have a better career for you. And what's his answer? Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going back to the one person is a world also.
No, but here you have so many other people.
Right.
So you're gonna just let them ride in Egypt, and this one person also. What are you saving him for? For riding in Egypt.
Yeah.
So what's the big glick? Who cares? So it's a shtus. But Hashem says that shtus reveals what you're made out of. That you care enough to do stupid things for somebody else, putting yourself in dire danger. That's what Hashem likes about it. So he comes in and he says, I have a better career for you. Pays less, but you'll have a lot more satisfaction. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking? You got the wrong guy. I'm not like that. Because I'm afraid. I don't have bitachon. I don't know how to do these things. I have no idea how to do this. I don't know how to take the people out of Egypt. I'm the wrong guy. You're impressed by that, what I did 40 years ago? First of all, I already forgot about it. Thank you for reminding me. What a stupid thing that I did. I didn't do it out of thinking. It was a spontaneous act that reflects nothing about what I'm made out of. I'm not that type of person. So what does this say? The Moshe Rabbeinu felt that he was insignificant. He might have been somebody, he's like Al Gore. I used to be the next president of Egypt, but I'm no longer. So what can I do? I mean, you got the wrong guy. Aaron, he's there. He's my brother. He's leading people. He knows what he's doing. So go to him. So Moshe starts out in a state like Yosef in this respect, that he doesn't feel that he's anything. He's really nothing. He's v'nachnu ma, I'm nothing. But that's not how he ends up his life. And after 40 years, he becomes a king. And it's a process in Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not something that happened overnight. Meaning, what he said when does he say v'nachnu ma? He says it in the first year, a few weeks after they come out of Egypt. When the manna started, just a week. When the manna started coming down, that's when he said v'nachnu ma. But he doesn't repeat that again at the end of his life. At the end of his life, he's something else. So the remez in all this is Moshe is mem hey on the outside. That's v'nachnu ma. That's his self-nullification, his feeling being nothing. But the shin in the middle is like yesh. And always shin in the Zohar is always the three patriarchs, meaning that it's chesed, gvura, tiferes. That's the sense of being that a person has from his emotive faculties. And that's what he didn't have. So at the end of his life, the shin became more important than the mem hey. Okay. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he moves to that level. He also went through a process like Yosef to move to that level of having confidence from where the world has confidence to exist. It's an existential state of confidence that I have a purpose in this world. And how do we know that he got it from Yosef? Because who took Yosef's bones with him? The etzem of Yosef. That was Moshe Rabbeinu. He brought him up, and he took it. He was with him the whole time that they were in the 40 years in the wilderness. Moshe needs to be inspired by Yosef's act. And so that's why he says every true leader, the true leader is not somebody who was groomed to be. He's like David also, who starts from existential doubt about his having any role in the world. If you groom yourself to be a leader, that's not what we call a true leader. You could be a leader. But truth here is self-fulfillment. And the more you have to fulfill, meaning from the point of, I have no legitimacy for even existing, I have no role in this world, to becoming a leader, that's the full fulfillment that a person can go through in his life. Okay, so we'll end with this, and God willing, next week, Zot Chanukah. So hopefully we'll get a chance to finish this part. I'm sorry again about the terrible, awful delay in starting.
So you didn't get to the